And while you're turning to Ephesians chapter 5, let me ask this question. How many people have heard the verse, heard this before? Wives, submit to your husband. How many people have heard that? Okay. A lot of people. A lot of the men just shot their hand up and women were like, where is he going with this? I don't, what's he about to? But yeah, all of us have heard that verse, wives, submit to your husband, right? Does anybody remember the verse that comes right before that? Anybody? Okay. A lot of people will quote the pastors, the political people, TV people, whatever, wives, submit to your husband, but they miss the verse that comes right before it, which is why we teach the Bible in context, because here's what it says in Ephesians chapter 5, right? It says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Anyone remember that verse? No, because that's not on any t-shirts. It's not on any coffee cups. You won't see like people posting that on their like Instagram page, but it starts, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And then the next sentence is, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. Now, here's why there's a difference, right? So what this says is, hey, Floyd, because he's writing to Christians, hey, Floyd, submit to Christy. Christy, submit to Floyd. Floyd, submit to Larry and Sharon. Sharon, submit to Gary and Karen. Karen, submit to Kevin and Bonnie. Bonnie, submit to Cody and Jessica. But here's the thing, Jessica, yeah, you submit to everyone else too, but the way you submit to Cody is going to look totally different than the way you submit to everybody else. So we'll submit to one another out of that. But then, because we're not all married to Jessica, sorry to keep talking about Jessica, because we're not all married to Jessica, right? She's going to submit to her husband in a totally different way than the way that she submits to us. So now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. It says we all submit to one another, but then because of their marital relationship, the way Jessica submits to Cody is going to be totally different than the way either one of them submits to us. And here's how it says, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Which brings up the question, then, how does the church submit to Christ? Because no matter what anybody else tells you, however the church submits to Christ, that's the way the wife is supposed to submit to their husband, because that's what we just read, right? It's not submitting the way they do it in this country or this nation or this denomination or this church or this anything. It's submitting the way that the church submits to Jesus Christ. So how does the church submit to Jesus Christ? By helping Jesus fulfill God's plan for humanity. That's the role of the church. That's why we're here. We're here to help Jesus fulfill God's plan for humanity. And if you don't know what that is, this is the Great Commission. Most people are familiar with it. And he, meaning Jesus, said to them, telling the disciples, go into all the world and preach and publish openly the good news, the gospel, right, to every creature of the whole human race. Some versions say to everyone in all creation. Some versions say to everyone in every nation. But no matter which version you read, it's clear. We as the church, we're supposed to go into all the world. When we go into our schools, when we go into restaurants, when we go to the dentist's office, when we go bowling, when we go golfing, when we're sitting around watching the game together in our favorite restaurant, we're supposed to preach and publish openly the good news. And so look at this. As the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. That's the way that it's supposed to happen. And now we know that the church submits to Christ in order to help him fulfill God's plan for humanity. So how does a wife submit to her husband? By helping to fulfill God's plan for your family. That is the way that the wife is supposed to submit to her husband. The wife's supposed to do with the husband the same thing the church does to Jesus, right? We just read that. Now, the reason I highlighted helping, because it doesn't mean that the wife is our servant, doesn't mean the wife is our maid, doesn't mean the wife is a doormat. It means the wife is a helper. And this was God's intention from the beginning, because in Genesis chapter 2, it says, the Lord said, it is not good for man to be alone, so I will make him a helper suitable for him. How many people remember the King James help meet? That phrase, help meet, from the King James, like they taught to you in Sunday school, and you were like, are you stuttering? That's not good English, but that's the way the King James said it, right? A help meet. And it's a phrase, it's helper. It's a phrase that doesn't mean that the wife is, God said, I'm going to make him someone who brings him his food in bed, someone who cooks, cleans, and does all that. Doesn't mean I'm someone who waits on him hand and foot. In fact, when you look at that word for helper in the Hebrew, the same word is used to describe God throughout the Psalms, where it says, God is my helper. In times of trouble, God will help me. When I'm going through the storm, God will help me. Exact same word used to describe God. And none of us expect God to wait on us hand and foot, to bring us coffee in bed, or to do any of those things. None of us think God is a doormat. So the same way that God is described to help us, that's the way that the wife is supposed to help the husband fulfill the plans for the family. That's what it means to submit.